You want to? What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. I'm Ant Walker of SureDog.com and MMA on Point, joined by the homie Danny Austin, who's got my Malcolm X hat on. It's always Black History Month around here. All right, so
I'm here. I'm here for it.
Yeah, so Danny Austin from the Toronto Sun, great guy, great reporter, one of the homies that I see every fight week that I work. So always a pleasure to kick it with my man. Oscar Willis of the Mac Life. I know you guys hear about him a lot because that's also the homie. He went out on a booze run, staying at his place actually for fight week. So he'll be here shortly to join us in all of the fuckery.
He went out on a booze run and then came back and was like, "I got to go to the cheaper booze run store."
Yeah,
but
so
he's been all over the place.
Yeah, that's Oscar. That's what he does. All right, so we are here to discuss UFC 235, which goes down tomorrow night. So John Jones and Anthony Smith obviously is the main event for the light heavyweight title. Then also Tyron Woodley being challenged by Kamaru Usman for the welterweight title. Ben Askren versus Robbie Lawler. Cody Garbrandt versus Pedro Munoz. Weili Zhang versus Tisha Torres, also on the card. It's a lot of good stuff to talk about. And, you know, since we're here fight week, hey, let's talk about the experience of fight week. So, Danny, last time I saw you was UFC 229.
232.
230. Oh, sorry. Yeah, 232 also. But, 232 and 239, two very big pay-per-views that were flagship events like this one. So, in comparison to what we saw at those two events, what do you feel in fight week?
It's smooth sailing, man. Like, that's honestly, that's from the second I got here, it just kind of felt like this is an old school card. There hasn't been much drama. It's been, good fights, champions, whether you think Colby's the number one contender or not. Like, I'm not trying to stir the pot, but it's the champion versus the best guy in the division, depending on interpretation. So for me, this has been about as smooth as you get. John's been great. Tyron's been pretty good. The two challengers have obviously sort of taken advantage of their opportunity. For me, this has just been, these are the type of fight cards I love to cover because it's just about the fights. It's not about all the other stuff. That's how I've felt.
Yeah, man. Like so 229, of course, had like all this extra drama associated with it. We're talking about felonies and misdemeanors and racism and geopolitics and all sorts of stuff leading up to that event. 232 was, marred by the sudden move to Los Angeles and the steroid scandals. And it was just so much drama surrounding that. This fight week has been real chill, man.
Which, like, at some point, I guess I should probably toss a little background in here. I cover the NHL up in Canada. That's like my main job, as well as doing Canadian football. And like, this is what sports coverage normally is, right? Like, it's you go. You talk to the athletes, you're going to try to preview as best you can, try to break it down, talk about the significance of the matchups and, what they mean going forward. Like, it's not normally trying to, like, in the case of 229, like, break down Russian geopolitics and, all of that stuff. So for me, this just feels like it's a big event because the fights are good and because the fights are big. And I don't mean to, like, moralize or anything here, but this is why I cover the sport. It's because I like what happens on Saturday night. And we've gotten to focus for, 3-4 days on what happens on Saturday night, not on all the other, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but, but bullshit. Like, so for me, this has just been a real refreshing. It's been like a reminder of why I love the sport.
Yeah, man, it's such a refreshing thing, man, to just see. And we can say what we want. We got a good question from the homie Kung Fu Z, who contributes regularly to the questions on the Shirt Dog live chat, the trenches. So we'll get to this in a second. But so even if you want to talk about mismatches, if you want to talk about big upsets and who's going to steamroll who and all that, especially when we're talking about the main event, this is kind of what we've been asking for. Just a legitimate build up to a fight. A contender did what he had to do to earn his shot, and now he's here.
So my main piece that I wrote this week, which was a couple hours ago, and again, I'm not trying to tell any fan, any media member how to feel, but I feel like personally I've kind of been like, well, I'm sort of sick of the champion versus champion fights, telling me how historically significant they are. Kind of loses a little bit of its significance when it happens all the time. And I'm like, well, it holds up the bantamweight division, holds up this. So to just have Tyron and John be like, we're fighting the next guy. Give me the number one contender. if I'm going to complain about that, I can't complain about the fact that, my friends back home who are very casual fans don't know who Anthony Smith is. Because I can just be like, this is a guy with legit power. This is a guy who can, like, who is as good a striker as pretty much, anyone outside of, those elite guys. I mean, for me, this is just one of those fights where, I think John's going to win. You think John's going to win. We all think John's going to win. But anything can happen out there, and it's okay to just kind of embrace that feeling of like, you know what, this guy earned a shot, so he's getting a shot. If it goes badly for him, it goes badly for him. But he's getting a shot. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
He got the opportunity, and that's really
he earned the opportunity. He earned the opportunity. He really did. So I love it. I love that main event.
All right, so let's go into a little more in depth about Jones and Smith. So one thing that every media member that we've talked to here in Las Vegas has said is that John Jones is different than what we saw in previous fights. Like he's so relaxed. He's always confident, but he's extra confident. But it's not in a cocky like I'm looking past this guy way. It's in being supremely confident in his own abilities, and he seems so relaxed, so at ease right now. So unbothered by, the steroid test that came out that's saying like, yeah, those M3 metabolites are still floating through his system as we expected. He's not bothered by any of it. And I like we're looking at him staring Anthony Smith in the eyes, something that he normally doesn't do. Mm-hmm. It's a different John Jones, man. What vibe are you getting from him?
Yeah, I mean, he's been pretty straight up. I mean, he's such a favorite that it actually like is probably bad for him to badmouth Anthony Smith. Like him saying Anthony Smith is unworthy is only going to result in less people buying the pay-per-view because so many people already think he's unworthy. But I mean, it's the vibe I got from him. I mean, he looks healthy. He looks lean. He looks like his weight cut wasn't all that bad. And it looks like he's back doing what he belongs doing. And he's better at this than anybody else. I mean, in my opinion, ever. I'll be honest. Okay? I'll say he's the best hand-to-hand combat competitor I've ever seen. And as far as I can tell, there's no evidence to suggest that there's anyone who's ever been better than him. So for him to be back in his rhythm, back in, this is what made him a star. This is what gave him all his money. Like, that was robbed from him. Well, not robbed from him. That was the opportunity was taken from him, whether it's his own fault or otherwise. Rob implies a certain thing, but he hasn't been able to do it. So of course he's loving it. Of course he's like, wow, I get to go prove that I'm the best in the world again. This is great.
And this thing about being an active guy, man, we haven't seen much of John Jones in the past several years, and we just saw him the very end of December, and we're just seeing him again now.
It feels weird to me that we're seeing him so quick.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like it's weird, like to have to after seeing him once a year at most for now 3 or 4 years probably. I think that's probably correct. Now we're getting to see him twice. You kind of like, as a writer, you got to come up with like fresh takes, fresh ideas on how to interpret the guy, and it's kind of hard right now because I've only had to think about John Jones once a year, and now I have to think about him twice in basically 60 days. But he also, I mean, like, look, what I've been wrestling with is how much, if anything, we had to bring up all that shit that we've had to bring up with him every time. And he seemed at ease. He at the picograms reappear, he seems to genuinely be confident that like he's vindicated by the science. Like none of that stuff's holding him back right now. And it's ultimately the UFC needs him back, right? I mean, Connor's not fighting for a while. Khabib's not fighting for a while. Cormier's retiring. So even if, you match those two up, it's only a one-time thing, and then Cormier's gone. They need their superstar, and it was always supposed to be John. Long before Connor, it was supposed to be John. They need him back, and they've got him back, and he looks happy.
Yeah, man. And quite frankly, like, controversy aside, I'm so happy to see him back. I'm so happy to see perhaps the greatest fighter of all time doing what he does. Like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Like, so that's kind of where we stand on that.
I hope he's not cheating.
Yeah, like, certainly. And here's the thing, like, we can go on and on and on about the steroid allegations and the PED test and everything. But quite frankly, I think I can speak for both of us in here. I don't understand the science behind it. So I'm not going to pretend like I do. It is what it is for right now. I mean, Jeff Novinsky gave us another scrum at the open workouts, and we didn't really learn any new information.
I mean, for now, all we have to go on is that this pulsing exists. And, like, I mean, truthfully, like, they should be testing John to try to figure out what's going on right now. Like, not testing him for, like, just test, like, scientists should be testing him to try to figure out why this is happening. But, I mean, like, I do think it needs to be brought up every time. It needs to be, like, part of the discussion. But I don't feel any guilt about saying, you know what, I have to kind of accept them. I've done my research outside. No one's been able to fully contradict it. So, yeah, I mean, it's what you're saying, right? Like, fuck John Jones back, man.
But yeah, I try to understand it, man. I gave up. It gave me a headache. Like, no, thank you. All right, so let's go into the co-main event. Tyron Woodley, Kamaru Usman. I like this fight more now that we're getting closer to it.
See, I always liked it. It's impossible for me to pick against Woodley. Like, as much as it's impossible for me to pick against Jones, like, at this point, Woodley has just faced better competition, has thrived against lesser competition when he's been put up against it. Like, we don't actually know how Usman is going to look against one of the,
second best welterweight of all time, if you ask me.
Yeah, and I mean, Woodley, like, I'm Canadian, so I'm never gonna, like, allow it, but like, but he's right up there. And so for me, like, you got to pick Woodley, but this idea that there's no path to victory for Usman is just ridiculous. And Usman brought up in my interview with him, he was like, I believe Rory McDonald is the last guy to beat Woodley.
Yes, he
was like, what's Rory McDonald great at? He's just really good at everything and puts it together. And he's like, that's the fighter I'm trying to be. He's like, I don't need to be the number one wrestler in the world. I don't need to be the number one striker in the world. He's like, as long as I'm better than Tyron at some of those things, and defensively I can hold off, he's like, I can beat him. And I understand where he's coming from on that.
Yeah, I get where he's coming from. Realistically, though, what is he better than Tyron at?
Well, we don't know. I mean, that's the thing. Like, we're wrestling?
I'm not joking.
You heard I didn't believe it in my voice.
Yeah.
But, like, at the same time, like, he's going to have to fight up. Like, there's no way that he can go in there and be impatient. Like, he can't go rush the fight. He's got to, like, literally make Tyron come to him at some point. Because, I mean, Tyron's just, he's going to wait for him. He's got that big counter. It's going to be there. And I just, like, if you're Usman and you try to go in there and bum rush him, Tyron will have studied. And, like, Tyron's one of the guys who legitimately watches 50 hours of tape on you. He watches your fights over and over again. Yeah. He's going to know what you're doing. So I think you got to wait for Tyron to make the mistake.
And when you're talking about strategy, I mean, let's not leave out Dean Thomas for all his contributions. I mean, he's one of those unsung heroes as far as coaching goes in mixed martial arts. I mean, he's been the mastermind behind a lot of Amanda Nunes's game plans, and we've seen what she's done. And he's been the guy that helped craft Tyron Woodley into this brilliant strategic technical fighter.
He was so good on counters, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying being patient, like, try to outpoint him.
No,
I'm just saying, like, if on any level your strategy is to take him by surprise from the start, it's not going to work. Like, that's all I believe. But look, I mean, I picked Tyron. Like, I will pick Tyron a million times this fight. I think I picked Tyron until Tyron begins to slow down from his athletic prime. I don't see there being anyone right now who, like, presents a legitimate on paper challenge.
The only person I see in this division to really God no. Santiago Ponzinibbio is the only guy that makes me think like this might be the guy that can do it. But time will tell. That I could very easily be very wrong on that. I mean, for the record, I would favor Woodley in that, but I think Ponzinibbio stylistically gives him some challenges because he's so well rounded. Like, Usman is an incredible wrestler. He has great cardio. He's not a bad striker necessarily, but Woodley, I think, is at least the same caliber of MMA wrestler as him. Mm-hmm. While he may not have outright the best cardio or better cardio than Usman, even when he gets tired, he's very economical in what he does. He's still when he's tired, he doesn't fight like he's tired, which I think is even more important than just having cardio. And then he has the big power in his shots. Oh, and by the way, he's actually a pretty damn good boxer. Yeah. So within, of course, anybody who is familiar with me and any podcasting or radio I've done or whatever, know that I live in Los Angeles. I and I've got friends and whatnot kind of in the fitness and boxing community in LA. And one very common sentiment amongst the boxing guys that I know in LA, they love and respect Tyron Woodley. And they're very, very, very quick to praise him. And that's coming from guys who don't understand mixed martial arts, who all they watch and all they do is box. And they love Tyron Woodley and what he does with his hands.
Yeah, and I mean, I think so much of the popular perception of Tyron as being is based on two fights, and that's the second Woodley or the second Thompson fight and the Maia fight, where he didn't do much on that. Other than that, though, I mean, the guy moves forward. The guy does that. Like, he had two bad fights where they were really high profile fights, and I still question why they didn't come up with a strategy that was going to make him look better than he did in those fights. But I mean, did he get hit against Till? Did he get hit a single time?
I don't remember. He might have got grazed with something, but I don't think he really took a real shot in that. I mean, so even
he won't be able to do to Usman what he did to Till, because you're not going to be able to do that to Kamaru on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, he's a different sort of fighter. Like, this is one thing. If you put Tyron against a specialist, specialists require these very specialized game plans that may not necessarily be the most exciting thing to watch. As far as the Thompson 2 fight goes, I didn't think that was a bad fight. That's not a fight that I want to rewatch, but I know watching it live, it was exciting to me because you saw what happened when they clashed in the first one. That was fight of the night at UFC 205. And it was that air of anticipation that I enjoyed.
I have heard people say that. I don't get it.
Well,
it's like up there with it's top 3 worst fights I've seen cage side.
Yeah, and see, I wasn't there for that one, so I'm not gonna, I can't jump out on a limb and disagree with you on that one. We definitely differ in opinion on that, but watching it from actually I know what bar I was at, O'Brien's in Santa Monica, cool spot, check it out. Shout out to the homie Willie. But
up, Willie.
so yeah, like I enjoyed that fight because knowing what could happen if they came in contact with one another, it was like the anticipation of violence, but it didn't end up that way. That meaning I wouldn't want to rewatch the fight, but as I was watching it live, I did enjoy the suspense. Now, as far as the Maia fight goes, that was not the most exciting fight at all. I respect the game plan. I respect what was done in that. I was case
I respect that he got hurt too. I do.
Yeah, he did throw his shoulder out,
and so he couldn't really move in and throw with any real power behind it. But I mean, those I genuinely respectfully disagree. I do think that the Thompson fight, I've heard people make that argument, and I'm just like, part of this game is pressing forward with offense while not making yourself vulnerable. So when neither guy really presses forward, it's like you're failing at part of what the point of the sport.
But when one guy pressed forward, he got dropped and he got ground and pounded into oblivion. Mm-hmm. So there's that too. There's Thompson knew that could happen, so he was hesitant to do that. Which was based on the knowledge that he acquired in their first fight.
First fight was so good.
First fight was incredible, dude. It's such a shame that the first fight doesn't get the credit it gets because people dislike the second fight so much. Yeah. But anyway, with these specialists and these specialized game plans, sometimes it's not as aesthetically pleasing. But Kamaru Usman is not a one-trick pony necessarily. He's not the guy who's going to one-shot KO you and outbox you necessarily. But you gotta respect his striking, and you damn sure better respect his wrestling. You damn sure better respect the pressure that he can put on a lot of people. So that right there, I think when you put a guy like that in front of Woodley, he opens up more. The last time we remember him fighting a guy who was very well-rounded was Robbie Lawler, and what happened there?
Well, and that fight, that remains one of the more we've been playing UFC 3 over there. That's a UFC 3 punch. That's such a perfect punch that he hits Lawler with. And I agree with you. I think it's been 5 years. I don't think that the Rory McDonald fight really counts. And frankly, if Rory McDonald hadn't broken his nose, I think Rory McDonald would be the welterweight champion right now. But I just don't think that he's ever going to be able to he's in so much pain every time he gets punched in the face that it's not a skill set thing. It's just a
physical.
Yeah.
Just it's not working for him from a physical standpoint.
Exactly.
Gegard Mousasi definitely didn't help that at all too.
And truthfully, I was on a podcast in 2017 with TSN with her buddy Aaron, and 3 of the 5 of us, I was not one of them, picked Usman to be champion by the end of 2018. So all of us being like, oh well, he's still young and all that. He's on track for where we thought he was going to be. A lot of people thought this guy was going to be a champion, and the problem is just it's disrespectful to Woodley to pick against him at this point.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely can agree with that, because when a guy just goes out there and continues winning in the fashion that he does, you may not have liked the Maia fight, but he dominated that fight. You may not like the second Thompson fight, but kind of dominated that one too.
And if Usman was showing me that he added a jab to his game,
right?
Or, then I'd be thinking a little bit differently. It's just Tyron's fought at this level, at this championship level, for a couple of years now, and Usman, he was obviously destroyed RDA, but I think we all sort of agree that RDA is not white in his prime anymore.
I mean, Colby would say that was his sloppy seconds.
But, Colby says a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to him.
I hope there's people that don't hate me, because I'm just going to dismiss Colby out of hand.
But you know what? I think the most interesting thing about the Woodley Usman fight is that when it was first announced, I didn't like it. I mean, I like from a competitive standpoint, it seems more competitive than the Covington fight, but the Covington fight just seemed like that was a fight that had to be made for manufactured and for actual sporting integrity reasons. That should have been the fight that was made, in my opinion.
It sounds like Colby turned it down, though.
Yeah, but he apparently he's been in some injuries and all. But we'll get into that. But here's the thing: that fight, once that booking was announced, it was kind of panned. But when we saw them interact at that presser, 3 weeks ago or so it was, and people started liking it a lot more.
Yeah.
People started liking it a whole lot more. And being around both of them during fight week, I like it even more now. Kamaru Usman has been so dialed in this week that if you were to pick him, I'm not mad at that, because the guy has an air about him this week that says he's ready for great things. Dude, the war, when he had the Nigerian flag colors painted on his face at the ceremonial weigh-ins, that was dope as fuck. That shit was nice, man. I love to see stuff like that and it was a truly emotional moment for him.
I also, on a very quick aside, Israel brought it up. Nigeria is coming for this fight game.
Yes,
they are wrestling. That's a wrestling country. They have the basis too. If they legitimately can figure out, Nigeria is coming for everybody in a lot of things. Hip hop too.
Yeah,
my sister lives. So, but yeah, I do think look, I'm not going to pick Usman. I can't pick him. I can't tell you how he beats him.
Yeah.
But I'm also, I never hated this fight. I like this fight from the start. I think Kamaru Usman is a perfectly worthy contender. And what I like about Woodley is if he wins this fight and then he beats Covington, he can say that he's largely cleared out the division, unless Ponzinibbio is ready and has a big win or two by then. So that's a good spot for him to be in, and that's where a lot of the areas where people were like, oh, Woodley's negotiating for these super fights too early. He's gonna get to the point pretty soon where you kind of only can give him super fights because there's no one else ready.
You know what? One thing that I really love that he said, and you can check this scrum out on the MacLife.com. I was part of this scrum, but some technical issues with the memory card, trying to upload it, whatever. So Oscar and I were talking to Woodley, and one thing Woodley said, he said, "Hey, I've been chasing." I asked him about, now, you've been chasing these super fights, you haven't gotten them, but since that seems to be the trend now, can you take pride in you just defending this title the way the titles are traditionally defended. And you said, hey, like the pace I'm going right now, I'll be the super fight. Yeah. People will start chasing that matchup, and I love that mentality because he's not playing these fucking games no more, man. With you know, trying to call out people and they say or do whatever or whatever's going on behind the scenes, and it doesn't happen for him for one reason or another, whether it be he hasn't earned it or they don't want it or the UFC doesn't want it or whatever. That now he's just accepting what's going on and he's making the absolute best of it.
And I mean, I do think that part of his problem right now is like when George was 170-pound champion, you had guys like Diaz, like Condit. You know, there were a ton of guys who were Shields. Like Jake Shields was the Skydome fight in Toronto with 55,000, but like they were kind of coming over from other organizations, had built these reputations, and then George would beat them, and that's sort of
like built-in super fights.
Yeah, and they were built-in super fights at 170, where they were legit contenders. And right now, like whether it's because, I mean, you may want to put some blame on the UFC, but like we don't really feel like these guys are generating that momentum that makes it be a huge fight at welterweight. That's not Tyrant's fault. He can only fight the guys in front of him, but he has asked for credit for it, and I'll give it to him. Fought the best guys in the division numerous times.
All right. So quickly, side note, an Oscar Willis update, because Oscar should be here, and we're at his place right now. He has hit me up on WhatsApp saying traffic is fucked. So Oscar, just imagine him yelling, screaming, and cursing.
He's been gone for like 45 minutes, and the difference in price for vodka cannot have been that.
It couldn't have been worth it. It really couldn't have been worth it.
Like it's literally been 45 minutes.
Dude, like just get a bottle of Smirnoff and call it a day. Like like how expensive is Smirnoff? All right, so we're weighing down the mic because
that's not working.
Oh, it was working, but the full can has enough weight to hold the mic down. So we gotta go move this and pop a stopper there. Boom, shakalaka, comes the Chief Rocker. All right. So one reason why we've seen Tyron Woodley like in such good spirits and this kind of fun air about him is Ben Askren. Damn, Ben Askren is such a breath of fresh air.
Breath of fresh air. It's the word that I would use, man. He's coming in. All of his trash talk, like I think I was saying this on Morgan's podcast, where it's like he's the type of guy who, like, in high school, like you're playing basketball after school, and he's so annoying. You're not actually mad at him, but you just want to beat him, but you can't. Like he's making fun of you because like you know you got a hole in your shoes. Yeah. He's not making fun of you for being like a bad person or because like you know your sister's hooking up with another guy from high school or anything. He's just literally being like, "Yo, your shoes suck," and you're like, "I gotta get this guy," but you can't. And like, that's what Ben Askren is to me. He's just like he's been so fun. I do have a question for you though.
Yeah, what's up?
If Ben Askren goes in and does what we all like, you know, fights his fight, takes Robbie Lawler down, basically holds him down there, it's not going to like, – he's at his most popular arguably right now, right?
Yeah, I think so.
He's not going to grow in popularity by beating Robbie Lawler, fighting a Ben Askren fight. The fans at this arena are going to boo.
Until he gets on the mic. And that's the thing. Like, if you give him that microphone, all is forgiven. Look at how popular Chael Sonnen is still. Chael Sonnen fought almost identical to identical to Ben Askren in the sense that his big threat is a takedown. He gets you down. He smothers you. He doesn't necessarily go for the submission. He doesn't necessarily go for the most devastating of ground and pound, but he's going to dominate that position and get that decision win. And we could have been bored to tears watching him do that. But when he got on that mic, did you really care what just happened?
No, I get that point. And no, I take that point. You're correct. And I think that part of it leads to he's pretty clear. He's like he wants the winner of Masvidal Till. There's a 0% chance that if Darren Till wins that fight, the UFC is like, okay, can you go hold down one of our up and coming stars on the mat? Because on the surface, Darren Till has no shot against Ben Askren. Ben Askren will take him down, hold him down, beat him up, and like suck his will to live out for like. That is a win for Ben Askren. There's a 0% chance that the UFC is letting Ben Askren just like destroy their young stars.
But does it matter? Because Ben Askren, well, unless they open up this 165-pound division. Yeah, and as long as Woodley has that belt, you know, they are very adamant. This is one time I really believe it. I think this is similar to a DC Cain Velasquez situation where these guys are genuine friends.
They're never fighting.
They're never fighting. Like they are day one buddies. Yeah. You know, go back to their college days. Mm-hmm. And they were, you know,
and they're like on some level like deeply invested in the other's success.
Right.
They help the other achieve. So like one's achievement is the other's achievement as well. Like why these guys are never fighting. Like,
yeah, it's not happening. So with that in mind, say Tyron Woodley goes out there, smokes Kamaru Usman, smokes Colby Covington, smokes whoever else they put in front of him. Ben Askren, he takes on Robbie Lawler. He takes on whoever the hell else because he's not necessarily trying to be the number one contender or trying to be the champion. He's just out there just getting paid.
How does it benefit the UFC, though, to have him go take out other contenders? This is not the WWE.
But you don't have to put him against the contenders that you want to fight for the belt. You don't have to put him up against those guys. You can put him up against, you know, no disrespect to Jorge Masvidal. You put him up against Masvidal. Masvidal isn't necessarily a guy that they're throwing into a title fight.
Yeah, I mean,
you want to get rid of Colby Covington? Throw him against Askren. Like there's a place for him in this division. Mm-hmm. Definitely a place for him in this division. Hey, you want a 155er wants to test his weight up at 170, and you know because he wants to make a move up, throw him in front of Askren if you want to humble him. There are things that Ben Askren can do. He can at the very least he can be the UFC's enforcer. And keep certain guys from getting the rub.
Look, if the UFC was the WWE and you could have Tyron winning everything and then Askren winning everything beneath, and the two of them walk in and just, you know, spit fire in the middle of the octagon for 20 minutes in between wrestling matches, and, you know, Dana walks in and does what Vince does and is like, or used to do. I don't actually watch WWE, so I'm talking about like, the attitude there. But, like, you know, if they could be DX, like that's great, but they can't. And I don't see there being like at some point you need Askren if he's going to be relevant, if he's going to be headlining fights, you need them to be on some level, at least on paper, competitive. And I just don't know where you go from here because I mean, Masvidal is a good example of a guy who like I don't think most of us expect to fight for a title anytime soon. But after that, I mean,
Wonder Boy, Damian Maia, guys that Woodley had not so exciting fights with that you don't want to put in title fights again. Askren opponents. Like there is a place. There's a place. And keep in mind too, like Askren ain't gonna be around for the next 10 years. Like we don't have to keep lining up fresh guys.
It's 3 or 4, yeah.
Yeah, he might have that in him. Like, and he was, by all accounts, he was straight up set on retirement.
Well, he was set on retirement unless he got a UFC offer.
Right, and he got an offer that sounded good, and apparently they're paying well. He says that he's getting paid more than he was at one. So,
says that
he says that, but it could be some incentives there. It could be a lot of things behind the scenes. I'm looking forward to what those disclosed paydays are looking like. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll find that out. All right, so next up on the card is that Zhang and Tisha Torres. Is that the next one? What do you think about this fight?
I like it. I mean, I'm happy there's a women's fight. I always want there to be at least one women's fight on the card. I think it's awkward when there's not. I mean, my feeling on Tisha Torres is like, I mean, her last fight was in Calgary, where I live, and you know, she looked okay against Joanna. I mean, she lost against a former world champion who, has lost to Valentina and Rose, but has beaten everyone else. And like Tisha didn't get smoked in that fight. She got outpointed. She got beat, but and then I mean, like she is Chinese, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, this is the key to the market, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and she looks incredible.
Yeah, I'm liking this fight, man. The thing is, I think it can be either really, really exciting or really, really boring. It's just a matter of whose game is going to take over. Like, are we going to see Torres use her experience to kind of nullify like the more like flashy elements of Zhang's game?
Presumably. I mean, I don't think this is going to be the fight of the night.
Yeah, I mean, but it is a very important fight from a competitive standpoint. But quite frankly, that's not. I like it.
Tisha's thing is largely her pace a lot of the time, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, like her cardio is incredible. She can do it, and I mean, I imagine if you're her, you play it relatively tight defensively, and then you just go all out round 2 and 3, and you win the fight. I mean, I do think that she's a better fighter in this situation.
So you picking her to win?
Yeah.
I want to lean toward Zhang just because I gotta have like some sort of upset pick.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm thinking. I think maybe she can surprise.
So you're taking Askren over Lawler.
Yeah, I'm taking Askren over Lawler. Yeah.
I don't know that I would make that pick 3 years ago.
Yeah, I wouldn't make that pick 3 years ago. Yeah, we're talking about a Robbie Lawler just coming off a knee surgery.
Haven't seen him in a while.
He hasn't been the same really since the Condit fight, and which was preceded by the Rory McDonald 2 fight. Very, very brutal on your life expectancy.
Yep.
Taking on those 2 fights back to back. So
makes him a legend for all time, but is not good for longevity.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there's that. So Zhang is my pick on that one. Cody Garbrandt and Pedro Munhoz. I really like this fight. Cody Garbrandt coming off of his 2 knockout losses to TJ Dillashaw. I really think that
Oscar's back.
Oh yeah, Oscar's back.
Just in case you're wondering why we looked over that way.
Yeah. Oscar's back with vodka and some chaser. So there it is. All right. So go ahead, take a seat, buddy. Oh, you're gonna piss first? All right. Okay.
How long we got left?
Whatever.
I'm having a piss first.
Okay, he's gonna piss first, and then he's gonna jump in this conversation about Cody Garbrandt and Pedro Munhoz. The big difference I see in Garbrandt from 227 to now, seems very much at peace, man. He seems like in good spirits. At the weigh-ins, at the ceremonial, the ceremonial weigh-ins, there was the first hint of any hostility between him and Munhoz, but I think they're just in fight mode, and that's that. But they've been so respectful of each other and so complimentary of one another. That 235 pre-presser a couple weeks back, they actually refused to say a bad word about each other when prompted.
And they largely did that this week as well. I will say that, like, in terms of booking, I will make the argument that booking Cody TJ2, people let the UFC off the hook for it. That fight should never have happened when it did.
100. 100.
It was bad for Cody, but he obviously was going to take it because there was so much ego involved. There was so much of all of that. But from the booking people at the UFC's perspective, you had a guy, who has all the talent in the world, but had some serious holes exposed. Mm-hmm. Let's be honest, he's at a gym right now that I think there's a little bit of concern about across the board. Right. And he didn't have time to go and fix those holes. I still don't know that he's had time. But I thought it was dumb to book that fight last summer. And I wish that Cody had even more time right now. And to be honest, I wouldn't mind seeing him switch gyms and work with new coaches because the raw skills are very much there. But I do think that, I thought that what really got exposed more than anything is that Cody doesn't have a plan B when he gets hit. Mm-hmm. Against TJ, he doesn't have that thing that he can automatically just go to, defend for a little bit, get his wits about him, and that got exposed once, then the second time he just got smoked. But
sorry to cut you off there. What I think really got exposed is how the emotions affect him more than anything else. Like, this is the first time in a long time we've seen Cody Garbrandt fight without having the emotion attached of the honor of Team Alpha Male and betrayal and friendships and all these interwoven storylines. He's not dealing with that this time. He's just going in there to fight. And every time we see him just go in there to fight, like against Takeo Mizugaki, so like against Mizugaki and Almeida, some good fighters that he was able to put out. Cody Garbrandt went out there and performed.
Yeah. So first of all, I need to issue an apology to the city of Los Angeles. I spent the better half of this week chatting about their traffic situation. Las Vegas has let me down in a bad way. It's let itself down in a bad way. I'm fine, though. I'm not incredibly angry. The thing about Cody that I find interesting is if we think back to when he fought Dominic Cruz, he wasn't really supposed to win that fight. He might catch him early and a bit similar to Anthony and John. But we all thought Cruz was going to win that. It was too early for Cody. That was Cody's breakout, amazing performance. Since then, he's fought Dillashaw twice. And it's almost like I feel like he's almost been reset, so now there's an air of uncertainty about him. It's like that performance against Cruz was almost an anomaly now. I mean, because he was just a hard hitter before. That one, he styled his way to victory. And then against Dillashaw, he fell. And I'm curious to see where his head's at, really. You know, like it's for the first time in a while, I've got question marks around where are his strengths and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, and see, like, I like where his head is at for this one because I don't consider the Cruz fight an anomaly. I consider the Dillashaw fights dual anomalies because of the personal nature of what was going on, man. Team Alpha Male spent so much time going up against Dillashaw in the media. They like shortly before the first fight, they went on Joe Rogan's podcast and extended talk about it. It was a talk of the town. Like we were there at 227. Well, you weren't at 227, were you?
No,
you weren't at 227. Danny, you were at 227, right?
I was at 227.
Yeah. So we're at 227. We could see like this genuine hatred that like they're standing across from each other and mean mugging the whole time. Garbrandt was snapping at everybody in the media. You know, he's
strong. You like your drinks?
Yeah, that was just a cup of vodka.
The ratio there was fucking.
I stepped into your friggin' Sprite that you spat at.
Yeah. No, I actually was trying to be funny. Sorry to take the conversation away from MMA for a minute. I came back in a bit of a frenzy because I finally got this vodka, and Anthony was looking at me, and I opened the vodka, and without looking, I poured it in, and then without looking, I opened the Sprite and didn't realize it was fizz, and it just sprayed.
And I stepped in it.
Yeah, well, because I had to get back to the show. I didn't want to sweep it off.
Now I'm going to criticize how I got a wet sock.
Very sorry.
Right, so yeah, this is what we do. We go off the rails here. But yeah, man. That being said, Munoz, man, I think he poses a tough challenge, but I think this more like relaxed, more focused on the fight and not the drama surrounding the fight version of Garbrandt.
Yeah,
I think he gets it done.
Cody Garbrandt, like, arguably should have been, and obviously still can be, you know, the most dominant bantamweight of his era. I mean, the skill set's there. He's the total package. But I mean, all that stuff about, you know, Dillashaw, about how them going on the Rogan podcast. What the hell were they doing? I mean, what was Faber, a veteran of this game, the guy running his gym? Why were you allowing it, like, especially after he lost the first fight? Just move on.
It like cost Garbrandt. They basically put in his head like, you're representing us.
Yeah.
You're representing the familia.
Yeah, and I think
like,
that pressure got to him.
Yeah, I think because then he got hit, he was like, fuck, and just started winging it.
Yeah. I mean, one thing for sure that we've seen from Cody is like, I mean, the dude comes from like a street life, street culture sort of thing where like you ride and die for your homies, and you add that ride and die for your homie pressure.
Right, probably.
You add that ride and die homie.
Treats like it.
you add that sort of pressure of ride and die for your homies into the cage. It doesn't belong there. It doesn't belong there because that clouds at least for some people, it's going to cloud their judgment. And I think somebody who gets that emotional, that charged up, like he was at 227, man, he was furious. You know, he was steaming mad just because Dillashaw was in the same room as him.
Well, you say they don't fight angry. Maybe that's why Cormier's always struggled against John, like because it's like the same thing, you know. That like Daniel Cormier is the model professional 99% of the time, and then
1% of the time.
All you have to do is bring this guy in the room, and he just can't. You know, it's.
I also just don't know how you walk into a second fight where you lost your first fight with the exact same strategy.
I'm not Mike Bond, so I don't know the statistic, but I know that it's like the person who loses the first one often loses the second one and faster. Yeah. I think that's the statistic.
But I mean, he also he shouldn't. There was no reason he hadn't even defended the bantamweight title.
Yeah,
why
that was
given an immediate rematch?
The absolute worst booking
because he's got neck tattoos, baby, and he reaches a market.
Like even with Joanna and Rose should not have been an immediate rematch, but at least you could say Joanna was on the verge of breaking a title defense record for the women. So all right, maybe you can make that argument.
I think Joanna and Rose
until Amanda Nunes fights Holly Holm and not Chris Cyborg, then that argument dies too.
Yeah, exactly. So you know, whatever. So all right,
Joanna should have been given a rematch. To be clear,
who?
I think Joanna and Rose, I think that should have been an immediate rematch.
You thought it should.
She dominated that.
Yeah, there's no one else, was there?
Yeah, we forget how quickly man, we were talking about her as like being an all-time great. And when she lost, she got hit.
This is what I find fascinating about Joanna though. Like I could see Andrade beating Rose, and no one else has been able to touch Andrade, but Joanna schooled her for 5 rounds. So then suddenly Joanna's like right back there. It's almost like Rose just has her number, right? It's weird.
Yeah, which happens. Like in the fight game, there's always that one guy, that one woman that's just got your number.
I mean, it's like
Matt Hamill has Johns. It's
like when I'm Anthony Pettis and you're Yancy Medeiros, and it's the only situation in which Anthony Pettis beats Yancy Medeiros.
Daniel.
Yeah, so I mean, of course, we're playing UFC 3 with these two guys. I've been giving them that work for the past couple days.
It's been domination by one of us, and
I've been giving them that work.
I've knocked you out a couple times now.
Yeah, Danny got a couple of wins. So Oscar, you are without a win. That's what's up. Beat him in FIFA 2.
I must have won once. I must have won once.
No, you didn't.
Okay.
You landed a punch or two, but
that's good.
Well,
my mum always said it was the taking part that counts.
Oh yeah, it's really participation trophies.
Can I compliment your lighting, where it's just like you're in like a
I'm
it's a halo.
It's like I'm angelic out in this.
A rose between two thorns. I think that's what they call it.
All right, so we kind of ran down the main card. So from the preliminaries, any particular matchups you guys got on your mind?
I'm going to say that Zabit versus Jeremy Stevens.
Of
obviously.
course.
I mean, even in the face-offs alone, there's bad intentions in that, right? Like Zabit's really in Jeremy's face, and Jeremy's sure he'll be there. He's not going anywhere.
Jeremy's the biggest test he's ever faced, too. Like,
by far, too.
Yeah. It's a great fight. I'm going to toss in Misha Serkinov and Johnny Walker.
I think so too.
That's a great fight.
I think Misha showed like some serious progress in his last fight after moving to Extreme Couture here in Vegas, not training kind of at a gym that he basically owns.
If you think how quick Anthony Smith got up to title contention, Johnny Walker's like on the faster version of that. I feel like there's just something around him.
If he beats Misha Serkinov,
like
there's not many more steps to go before you get to a title.
Conversely, I don't think that's an easy fight. I do think that like Misha.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
He lost to Volkan in a fight where like clearly he didn't have the right strategy and like went in and didn't understand the power that Volkan had in his hands at the time and got hit. And then he lost what's his name?
Oh yeah, him.
Brazilian. Got knocked out by Anthony Johnson in like 6 seconds.
Santos. Oh, Glover.
Glover. Sorry.
And like that's not a bad loss. Like
I'm thinking Santos Smith. Sorry. I'm stupid. Shut up.
Yeah. But either way, like I do, and I'll toss it out to Misha as well. Just do the like real quick. Gotta do it for the Canadian. But Misha's wife is fighting breast cancer right now, so he's going through a lot in this camp. And
Man,
they're humans, and we gotta like offer up.
When you told me that the other day, I was like, preparing to fight another human being is probably a stressful endeavor. To do it while you go home and, do you know what I mean? It's heavy shit.
And like, without like,
kudos.
They're so in love, too. Like, they're one of those couples. So like, I just like whatever happens in that fight, like my heart goes out to.
It's a bit like me.
So okay, Oscar. It's okay. Like, I can't, dude. I can't imagine that. Like, that's I'm away from my wife for the weekend. For the week or whatever, covering this fight, and I'm like worried sick about every second. And so to be away, literally going into battle, but dude, your wife
you gotta wonder, man. Like, I can't imagine. Like, it sounds a bit perverse, but that must be pretty motivating, though, because it's almost like you're fighting on behalf of her. Like, imagine that first time he gets tagged, he's like,
I legitimately don't.
That's what he told me, man.
I do not think I think this is a 50-50 fight. I think. Like, Misha is a really, really talented guy.
I totally agree.
He's got to survive those first couple minutes and sort of figure out where Johnny's hitting him from. And
I do think if Johnny Walker wins, they're going to give him like the Israel Darren Till treatment, strap a rocket up him.
You know what? Speaking of a rocket being strapped, this is a note from the homie Jay, who helps run the forum at SureDog, and he's behind the scenes just kind of dropped me a few notes right here to help out while we're doing this broadcast. But he says if Walker gets a title shot, he'll be the third light heavyweight in a row to come out of nowhere, put on some flashy wins, and get a title shot.
Ozdemir Smith, Walker.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I imagine if Walker wins, they're going to make him fight Ozdemir. That's just like the next rung up, right?
Thiago Santos is next.
I would put Thiago Santos next, but
I want to see that fight.
Let's bring it on. Same. If John's, although I do wonder Although I do think John is a star. I do wonder if John sees like the pay-per-view buys for this and goes, "Oh,
it's like time to be an asshole again."
I guess I do want super fights. You know,
Yeah,
I wonder.
like, time to be.
I understand he wants to be active, but I guess if John,
you have to give him the super fight though. Like, what is a super fight?
Oh, you just got to get him Cormier.
Cormier 3 at heavyweight.
Anyway.
Or if he can steal that Lesnar fight from Cormier.
I thought he was going to until today at the press conference when Dana was like, "I want to make Cormier happy."
Yeah.
I thought John was going to swipe it until he said that. I was like, "Oh, that's nice." You know, and Dana's pretty reliable when he says stuff as well. So you can pretty much.
And he tries to be very good to Cormier.
He's pretty much guaranteed that
when he says something.
Yeah, it's
gospel.
One thing, he is an honest man, so we gotta take him at his word.
And like that's the thing, like I appreciate that we don't have morning weigh-ins anymore on Fridays because Dana said that he was switching that.
Do you remember that? Actually, that was jokes because, and this isn't. I'm not trying to shit on Dana actually, but when he was like, "Oh yeah, we're changing it back to the late ones," and then I think John Morgan asked him like, "What happened for that?" He went, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that." He's obviously just really pissed off that week. I was like, he was over it.
He had $300 million to not think about it.
Oh no, it was. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was which one. Someone missed weight early on. And they were going to change it. Was it Romero in Australia or something? I think it was.
Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah.
There's some morning weigh-ins that caused Romero to miss weight.
Yeah.
No, it's Romero in Chicago.
Oh, the second whatever fight. Yeah. All right. So, I mean, we've run down kind of the important fights of UFC 235, but just overall things that stand out to you from fight week, and then we'll get out of here.
Diego Sanchez rocking a do-rag feels right. That's the first thing that comes to mind. I've done a few John Jones events. I've never seen a man like more cool. Like not cool, but like as in unrattled. He just seems, he's just
like comfortable. Like,
yeah,
like this is like he owns this shit.
Like honestly, I was like, I'm surprised they're doing a media day for John. I thought he'd get a press conference, and then I just sort of thought, I bet he's going to be like not in a great mood at the media day. I could just imagine that sort of thing being like at this point in his career, like a nuisance. Far from it, he was having a blast. Was the most relaxed I've ever seen, and gave some like great answers, genuinely like insightful answers. Sometimes with John, there's always this stigma of like, oh, I think he's putting on his PR hat. He's pretty chill, pretty honest. I asked him like, you mad about the cocaine jokes that get thrown at you every press conference? He was like, nah. He's like, it just sucks. My kids are gonna see it. But he's like, shit, I got millions of dollars in a Bentley and I was 20. He's like, what do you want me to do? I was like, yeah, fair, respect, and stuff like that. And I really like. I think the Gustafsson one last time, I think he was a bit more rattled about the whole event being moved and the picogram stuff than he let on. I think this time the dude is just so comfortable in his own skin. So that's my two biggest takeaways is Diego with that's the main one. Diego with the do-rag is, I just want to, really emphasize how important that is to me. And also today he didn't have a do-rag, but he had a hood.
Yeah, that was he looked like a Joan of Arc or something in the stare down. So that was funny. All right, so I got
fuck it.
I thought we were just going.
You gotta wrap up.
Oh, that's true. I am the host. All right, Danny's up next.
I mean, I guess for me, it's like, look, I'm a guy who wakes up every morning and I look at my value propositions. And what I want is a product that was viewed by 700,000 people in 2016.
How many?
But 20 million
20
people.
million? That's such good growth, Dan.
Yeah, in 1 year. That's fantastic growth.
Exactly. So
fantastic.
How many homes would that be available in, Danny? If you give me a ballpark figure.
I haven't seen growth like that since Tiana Trump got out of jail. Y'all don't get it. Y'all don't get it. Y'all don't get it. I'll explain.
That's a California joke.
No, it's a pornography joke.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't watch that.
Lying like shit.
killed 15 family computers with that, mate.
I hope that the viewers understand what that was. But I mean, look, this has been a fun week. I said it at the beginning. This for me is like getting back to what I love about the sport, which is just like moving divisions forward.
Good
top
fights.
guy fighting the best guy. It's good fights.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not a guy. You guys know that I'm a guy who will rip the UFC when I have to, and I just haven't felt anything to rip this week. It's been fun. It's been
actually, do you know what, Danny? Like, it's the first time I've really thought about it through that lens. But this is like the first time in a while, like a significant while, where it's like if you look at every fight, you're like, those two are fighting on merit. Those two are fighting on merit. It's all the way down. It's like, this is like a very evenly matched, well booked, solid card. Yeah. That's so true. I didn't think about that.
And it's actually something that, like, I joked about the one championship thing. That was my reference with the value proposition for people who don't know. But the one thing that Vitor said was he was like, the constant trash talk, the WWE stuff and all that. He's like, it's only sustainable for so long because eventually you can't go any bigger. And what needs to actually happen is be growing the sport based on, like, athletic
long-term booking.
And this is one of those cards that, like...
But also what's interesting is, we talk about, the trash talk is what sells. Trash talk. Anthony Smith and John Jones have been really, really nice together. And not to get too behind the curtain, but views are good.
Yeah. And we'll see what the sales look like.
Like Kane versus Ngannou compared to this.
They're not going to do 900,000, but, like... Yeah. We're in a point.
At this point in life, 400K is good for them, no?
Yeah, I agree.
Fury Wilder got 300.
And that was a huge fight.
Yeah. And Anderson versus Israel with no Robert Whittaker on the day of got, like, nearly 200, 175, I think was the figure.
Yeah, so 400 is probably the high end that they
can get these. If there's no one called McGregor on the card, or maybe Khabib.
Well, I mean, Jones Gus again. Didn't Jones Gus do like 800?
But it could not have done that much. Could it?
Yeah. That's but also that had the boost of the drama of the event.
I have a theory that is literally that what happened with that card is nobody knew it was happening.
It got as high as 800.
Yeah,
that can't be right.
And like ESPN needed to give all those people like time off for Christmas. So they were like, all right, well, we'll just run with this story again and again. And it became like one of the biggest stories in sports. And by the time that we had like 3 days of coverage being like this, that, it seemed like a huge deal.
But also not just that it was, give people time off, but it was also like they were about to roll into their partnership with the UFC. So now
it did like 800.
Honestly,
and Jones Cormier too did like over, I thought it was like 875.
I think Jones never broke a mil. Actually, did UFC 200 break a mil? He wasn't on it. That wasn't intentional.
I see what you did there.
No, that wasn't intentional. But he's never broke a mil, which is actually kind of crazy because you'd think him and Cormier.
And it's one of this is actually part of the thing that I wrote today, where I was like, what's curious about this is a little bit of a litmus test for the UFC because they are going to roll Jones out again this summer at some point.
July, I'd say. I bet if he gets out of this unscathed, I bet they get him in July.
And I guess it depends. I mean, you work for Connor's outlet, but like if Connor's back in July, then they'll separate them. There's no way they put those guys both in the same card.
I would have thought that, but do you remember when they put what was 214? They had Jones,
Cormier,
Cormier, Tyron, and Cyborg.
Okay, but Tyron is a second tier.
And they had Cowboy and Lawler on that too. They put a lot of big.
No, you're right. They'd probably do either Jones July, Connor August, or vice versa. I have no inside knowledge.
But what's interesting is that like this card, because unless you're doing Cormier again, if you're gonna do like Thiago Santos, which I genuinely believe is the fight to make at this point,
I agree with that.
If nothing else, it's gonna be entertaining.
He's earned his shot.
Dude, imagine if Thiago, like of all the people, like does Thiago Santos barely does any media, just shows up, KOs him, fucks off. You know what I mean?
I have legitimately never gotten off Thiago Santos. Island, like I've seen him knock out so many Canadians back in the day that I'm just like I'm scared of him.
He'd be like the Rumble fight that never happened, right?
Yeah. And I mean not quite because Rumble it was impossible.
Kicks.
Yeah. But I love that fight. But either way, this fight, if this does 500, all of a sudden, then you start booking John again.
If John does 500, then you can put him against anyone.
Hey, Jay just dropped me this note. Jones Cormier 2 was Jones' biggest event at 860,000 buys.
That's huge,
and that's it. But
non-Connor, non-Ronda, that's huge.
Well, especially as pay-per-view after 2014, 15.
That was really
they did really crazy year once 2015. So
that was really their only big pay-per-view that year, aside from Mayweather.
I covered that event, and no one thought that event was going to be 860.
Yeah,
nobody thought. None of us thought LA 232.
What
was going.
year was that? It was 2017.
2017. Yeah.
So because they did GSP Bisping, and that didn't do that great. I know it did like good.
That's the year that I got robbed with Matt Wells in.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
I remember that too.
That was like the first conversation we ever had where you were telling me about y'all getting
First
robbed.
time I made J.
Oh, and speaking of Matt Wells, he actually just shouted us out in the chat. He said, "What's up, fellas? Keep it down." Matt Wells. Actually,
Matt, if you're watching, fair
Yes.
fucking play to you for getting that video of Colby. You
Yep. So I guess
well done, mate. Well done.
I'll wrap up with my standout things from Fight Week. And I wanted to talk about.
Can you do one thing before you do?
Yeah, what's up?
Can you just do like a Christ pose where you like follow the light up?
Yes.
With the beard as well, it looks quite good.
You're right. I'm a good-looking man. But yeah, so all right, so yeah, shout out to Matt Wells of the Slip and Dip podcast, who was able to capture the video of Colby Covington running up on Dana White in the casino in the Palms while he's at the blackjack table, and he was the only one who was able to capture this footage because Colby deleted it right away.
I mean, he wasn't the only one because apparently.
Damon.
I'm still confused with what happened there. I called a guy out on Twitter.
Matt Wells gets credit.
Yeah, Matt Wells got
on the Walkout Network.
Matt Wells
got Matt Wells is the homie too.
Leading my fantasy basketball league now by like an honestly insurmountable amount.
I just clocked you wearing his Malcolm X hat. That's hilarious.
I actually turned it around when you said Matt Wells, and I like had a moment where I was like, "Fuck!" It looks like I'm just like one black guy showing out another black guy.
So
All
right, you got to respect the set.
Yeah.
Shout out the crew, you know.
Yeah, all that shit.
I get it.
All right. So
I'm down.
All right, so we clearly have lost our minds here. We definitely appreciate everyone who has been watching, everyone who has participated. Please stick around to all of our 3 respective outlets for coverage of UFC 235.
Don't worry about mine.
So Oscar,
I'm good.
You're good. All right, so Oscar, tell the people where they can find you.
So I live at 220. No, I can't. TheMacLife.com, at MacLifeOfficial on Twitter, or my personal Twitter would be Oscar S. Willis. S for sugar because I'm so sweet.
S for stupid. All right. Actually, let me stop because I'm staying at his place and he'll kick me out. I'll be sleeping on the street. So, Danny, where can the people find you?
Danny Austin _9, but honestly, like it is mostly for the next month or two, like hockey stuff. So
strong vodka. Backing up. I stole your drink instead of my own.
Honestly, follow these guys. Follow Matt Wells. I'm trying to think. Follow Jose Youngs.
James Edwards.
Jose is the homie.
Follow
too.
James Edwards.
James Edwards is the homie too.
Follow
Because,
James.
truthfully, he's found love, and it's important. And
if you want to see every meal he goes on. I'm texting him after this to be like, make fun of you. Oh, and Submission Radio.
Submission Radio. Dennis and Cass are by far the homies. I love those 2 guys. All right. So
also follow Jim Edwards on Instagram because I like his Friday night dates as well. His trip to Madrid was exciting. He's going to Japan.
He's going to Japan.
Oh, that's what's
Jim.
up.
We miss you and love you. That's why we mock you.
Oh, punk ass Jim skipped this trip, but that's all right.
He also told me he was coming, which is part of why
I heard he was coming.
I heard too.
All right, so
just your bloody ball and chain, you know.
So
y'all are indoors.
So y'all know where to find me. Obviously, if you're watching this, you're on the Walkout Network, which I run. My Twitter is @AntWalkerMMA, and stick to Sherdog.com for some of the coverage of UFC 235. Just filmed a preview video with the other homie, James Lynch, also at Sherdog.com, and Mike Sloan, also the homie behind the camera work, and also with MMA On Point. I know I submitted a script that should have a video coming out soon, and I'm late on the script, but that will be done by the end of the weekend. But anyway, y'all know what to do. You got to stay positive. You got to stay beautiful. You got to stay incredible. You got to stay ready to do whatever must be done out here in these streets. And beyond everything else, you must. It's imperative that you always stay sexy. I will see you when I see you. Peace.